This is crazy. I guess you can say that me going for all this is an example of me taking for granted the power of something being declared solvable, huh? Cause, okay, I did say that it's not like I need confirmation that there are hints that make it solvable, and I'm trying to think for most of this. But remember when Eva was about to solve the epitaph in episode 3? And I was like, oh shit! I better give this another shot before they give me the answer. Or the whole thing about how it is solvable in just like the first 4 episodes that you guys said that, and I did those investigation videos. Like what I'm saying is that Ryukishi knew well how to push me into a direction to try something again, and you don't think about how the story managed to do that with the Raider. It flies past your head when the story pulls that stuff on you. Hell, even the whole thing with question and answer arcs, like that whole thing that kind of makes you go, "Uh-oh, answer arcs. I think I should try and think some more before I start the answer arcs." Cause something tells me that the answer arcs is gonna involve some answers. Granted, that is not Ryukishi, but rather the localization team, who are also Umineko fans, who title these question and answer arcs. But still, it is quite something. It is definitely quite something. You mad geniuses. Okay, time to move on. I think I talked enough.
じゃあこいつと俺の関係も殺し合いじゃなくて愛ある関係だっていうのかよ。
意地悪をし合う小学生同士の関係程度にしか見えませんがね。
Vegeta joked at us in a middle-aged woman sort of way. Still, though I'm not expecting friendship or a trusting relationship, I can accept her as a rival. That way is fighting in full force, trying to make me acknowledge that she's a witch. And I'm responding to that and going all out trying to deny that witches exist.
ミス・ベアトが正面から全力であなたにぶつかっていると、どうしてあなたは言い切れるのですか？
見てりゃわかるだろ。
あなたに全力で正面からぶつかっていると彼女が赤き真実で宣言したわけではありません。なのにあなたはそれを疑わないわけですか？赤き真実以外は何も信じないとおっしゃったあなたがです。
バトラ君の言うところのコミュニケーションが増え、互いの関係が疑えなくなった段階。
That's right. He did say all that stuff about communication.
というものに違いないですね。
Vegeta and Delanor giggled together. Delanor with her cat eyes there. One guy, multiple women. The topic is love. Wait a second. Isn't this the worst formation for getting made fun of? Uh-oh. This is suddenly turning into a high school anime once again. I'm having flashbacks here. I tried a couple of times to change the subject, and clumsily brought up more refined topics in an attempt to return the mood to something more suitable for a tea party in the rainy golden land. But each time, Vegeta saw right through me and laughed at me. Even amidst this, Nato kept looking downwards with those grey eyes, staring into her black tea. Yeah, that's right. Vegeta and Denonor gave me so many hints back then. And yet, I barely thought about them at all. It's way too late now, but let me think. Not that it's too late to change anything and I have an endless amount of time on my hands. Let me think. One more time. Let me think about the red truth Vegeta gave me. Alright. Like, if we couldn't think about the stuff under the pressure of the trial, I mean, now we can do so freely since we are doomed to eternal damnation. I mean, yeah, plenty of time to think about the red truth. Like, learn a couple of languages, watch a lot of anime, all that stuff. So, let's see if we can put our grave cells to good use. And the crutch called the decalogue that Donors lent me. With the red truth, Vegeta guaranteed that, at the very least, Battle left enough room in this tale for me to achieve victory. And that red truth guarantee gave me the power to start my heart beating once again. Correct. And there's the crutch of the decalogue, which the Lord led me. Even she began by warning me that the decalogue isn't so almighty that it can solve all riddles. But even so, she kinda described it as a method to solve. No, to take on riddles. Let me try. Even though there's no guarantee whether this tale is mystery or fantasy, let me believe that I'll definitely be able to solve it. And that it is a solvable tale. A mystery. And let me make one last attempt. When I came to, I was suddenly in that strange tea room, where I had often argued fiercely with Dato across the table. Okay, well, I said what I had to say about Hideyoshi's supposed murder, and all that stuff that I said in episode, like, in season 5, episode 33. And, like, the whole talk about the baby and the mother. And especially when it comes to the promise and how like that thing that I just recently figured out about Dato making this game solvable and also being a confession of love and sorts. So like I am certain of those two things. If not for the stuff that I said in season 5 episode 33, then like those other things in regards to Dato, like I am sure of. Let's see if there are other things we can deduce. Of course, Dato was nowhere to be found. It was just me, isolated and alone. That's alright. So, I won't stop thinking. Okay then. What were Nox's commandments again? I'm sure Delanor explained most of them when slamming me with them. Of course, even though I recall them vaguely. What was the first one again?
謹んで申し上げる。ノックス第一条。犯人は物語当初の登場人物以外を禁ず。
Okay, so chances are extremely high that it is one of the humans we know of on the island. When I remember about what the first one was, Delanor's subordinate appeared, as if in answer to my question. Without bothering with an unnecessary hello, she told me nothing more or less than what I wanted to know.
そうだったな。第一条。 犯人は物語の最初から登場している人物でなければならない。
Does that mean that by the end of the first game, the culprit must have appeared already? They're true, that is the most basic of basics in the mystery genre. A given. A given? Have I really kept that as a basic assumption? No. You have surely talked about the unknown culprit X for quite a while in the past. Hell, even I did with the Red Web. With each new game, the number of people in this tale keeps increasing. And that violates the closed circle rule. From that moment onwards, everything is screwed up. Did I give up on the inside, thinking that the true culprit or mastermind must not have shown up yet and that reasoning was therefore useless? Well, for the reasoning to be useless, no. But for a culprit to be revealed as someone we meet later instead of at the beginning, I mean, it's not out of the realm of possibility. Like, I remember one case in the past where the culprit was... well... like, what I'm thinking of looks like a special case, to be honest, but... the culprit of that case turned out to be someone who we learn about much later. And also turned out to be one of the characters introduced, like, right at the beginning of the story. Kinda. Like, there were hints that lead to the reveal of the culprit who showed up later. Which is good, but it is questionable whether it really follows the knocks or not. If I read this tale as a fantasy, new characters keep showing up to the point where even having demon kings or gods or divine creators appear won't be strange at all. Even if the true mastermind first appeared in one of the last tales, in one of the last episodes, I just accept it as that kind of story. True. If we are to stick to conventions of the old murder mysteries, I think that it has to be someone who has physically been introduced to us at the beginning of the story, like right in front of Beller. So we would go with the 18 humans that we know. Otherwise, we would have to go a little bit more complex, like maybe the culprit died, quote-unquote died, a long time ago. And we got introduced to that character at the beginning of the story via flashbacks. Or we're talking about split personality. So let's see what Beller has to say about this. Let me see. However, if I read it as a mystery and stick with that conviction, then there's no need to worry at all about anyone who shows up later. Because Noxus first clearly rules them out, stating that it's impossible for the culprit to be anyone who appears later on in the story. Of course, there's also what both Delanor and Virgilia said. There's no guarantee that this tale follows the rules of the decalogue. So, of course, I cannot deny the possibility that the culprit first appeared in the second game, for example, or a little bit later. However, this is one way of thinking. This time, I'll forget about the Devil's Proof completely, and try to borrow the power of the decalogue in my thinking. After all, I know by now that I'll never be able to reach the truth without looking from multiple perspectives.
なら、何度も繰り返されたこのゲームの犯人は全て18人の中の誰かだってことになる。19人目の幻想なんて初めから必要ない。
Even the first of Nox's commandments denies the existence of an unknown person known as the Witch from the very start. If I had followed that in a true sense, I might not have suffered so miserably in the second game.
ノックスの第2条は
Okay, so we're going with one of the 18 in its purest simple form, I guess. Okay, well, it is nothing new, but I guess we also have the decalogue to take into account. One of the 18 humans. I had my ideas before about which one, but... Okay, let's see about Nox's second.
謹んで申し上げたてまつる。ノックス第2条。探偵方法に超自然能力の使用を禁ず。
Dalnor's other subordinate appeared without a sound and gave me an answer to my question. That's right. A detective cannot go around using magic.
そしてこれがフェアな戦いであるならば探偵と同様に犯人もまた魔法を使ってはならないということだよな。
謹んで申し上げる。解釈は自由と知りたまえ。
だよな。ああ、俺の自由に解釈させてもらうぜ。
If this game is a fair battle between me and Baton, and because this tale is solvable, it features no elements which are impossible to explain with logic. Correct. In other words, magic cannot, must not exist. When it does appear, I shouldn't suspect that the mystery element is breaking down, but I should instead question why it was shown and suspect the witnesses and observers. That's right, that was Bato's greatest weapon in the second game. Depictions of magic that have no place in the mystery. By showing me that, she forced me to think that this tale wasn't a mystery, and therefore that reasoning was impossible, and I surrendered. However, if I had believed unshakably that it was a mystery, it would have been completely obvious to doubt the witnesses who claim to have seen those things. To doubt the witnesses who claim to have seen those things. Right. It makes perfect sense. If a piece on the game board mentioned that something happened with magic, we would doubt it. Also, at the end of the first game, it was revealed that this tale had been passed on to people in the future by means of a message bottle. Someone wrote down the instant, in the form of a story. In other words, this entire story is a role which includes the personal opinions of an observer. Namely, the person who wrote that message in a bottle. In other words, the observer isn't God. It's a human. Therefore, there's no guarantee that the descriptions are truly impartial. By the end of the first game, it had already been made clear that the text violated a constant premise of mystery stories. That they must be told from a God's eye view. God's eye view? You mean the narration? For that reason, it's possible to doubt not just the witnesses, but the observer as well. If I could have doubted this much, then no matter how many seemingly unsolvable displays of magic appeared, I wouldn't have had to blindly accept them and give up. However, that raises the question. Is it even possible to solve a story written by an observer who isn't impartial? No reasoning ends here if you get obsessed with this. And that's why it's so important for me to believe that Battle is trying to fight me through this tale. Because it's a fight, that means I've been given a chance of winning. And the fact that I've been given that must mean that reasoning is possible. So, if I am understanding this right, if we think of Battle as the observer who has shown us magic, and the narration empowered the idea that it was magic, and if we are to follow the commandments and that Battle made this game solvable, that means that we have to question the reasoning of what she showed us. And that we have to question the reasoning of what she showed us through those magical scenes. Like what they tell us. Question the importance of the magic scenes and what they mean for the story and the characters. Like those that have been involved. I think. Like I thought about that in the past as well. This part is the hardest. Unless I believe that the cruel witch took on the risk of losing to try and have a fair fight with me, I cannot get past this part. Virginia's right. It's just like love. If I cannot believe that Battle is fighting me head on with everything she's got, I won't be able to reason any further in this. Alright, I'll admit it. Unless I admit that we are in love, I won't be able to get any further. When Vegeta ran out of patience with the two of us, shy and incapable as we were of admitting it out loud, she gave me that red truth instead. And that was the red truth saying Battle wanted me to solve the riddles of this game, so she created them to be solvable. What the hell is that? It's like, Sato-san in Class A says he likes you. Like hearing a love confession via a friend. I really am pitiful. Reasoning is love. If we don't love each other, the logic won't open up. In that case, why can't we just say that we love each other? If you think you can solve it, just you try it. Just you try. You're incompetent. Like hell you can solve it. Yeah, according to George Aniki, you call that sort of thing tsundora. Yeah, like the author is being a tsundere about wanting us to solve the mystery, or thinking that we're incompetent for not figuring it out sooner. And me, the reader, just like a tsundere, I either trust Ryukishi that he makes it solvable and think that he respects me, or he's testing my incompetence with his intellect of IQ 200, and me wanting to shove this frying pan up his butthole for that. Cause, you know, I'm a tsundere like that. And that brutal witch is finally starting to look a bit cute. If I meet her again, I wanna try saying, yeah, you're such a tsundere. If I meet her again, somewhere.
他の実会も教えてくれ。純不動でいいぜ。使えそうなやつを頼む。
謹んで申し上げる。ノックス第8条。提示されない手がかりでの解決を禁ず。
謹んで申し上げる。ノックス第6条。探偵方法に偶然と第6巻の使用を禁ず。
Yeah, like the 8th commandment, like that one I completely skipped over for several games. Like, I can imagine. Because I had to think with devil's proof and just think of anything that is possible without contradicting related truths. I mean, okay. When I talked about the idea of the entire mansion exploding at the end of the 5th of October because of the bombs, I presented a lot of clues there. Like, even to this day, I'm still very much proud of that theory that I came up with. And I think that is because I have thought of many clues that can support that theory. It is the reason why I feel the most confident in that theory. And you can say that, like, even that whole thing with the promise being part of the reason why the sin happened in the first place. That, like, the reason why I'm so confident in that unknown promise being integral is because I have clues. Or rather, I have moments that tell me that the concept of promise is important. That the character clue of promises being important to battle is what drives me to think that it is part of Balor's sin. Like that moment in the court when Balor asked, "Promise? The hell? I never promised anything before." And then Battle laughing to no end, like that told me that the story is literally shoving it in my face that this promise is integral. Like hell, if we are to think of another example, like remember the cigarette butt moment in episode 3? That thing was reasoned out by Balor because of that character clue at the beginning of that episode, when it was established that Hideyoshi does not smoke in the same room as Eva. Like, that is a clue that was presented early on that can empower Balor's reasoning. Like, if Balor were to say that, oh, Hideyoshi does not smoke in the same room as Eva, and that type of detail was not shown before, then it's not a reasoning that is empowered by a clue. It would be a reasoning that you just came up with because it doesn't contradict the red truths at that point. Like, that is another example, but the rest of the mysteries that I have dealt with? Fuck if I know. Like, do I, for example, have proof that the chain to Hideyoshi in Eva's room in episode 1 was already cut by the time Kanon came in with huge pliers? I mean, what kind of proof can I even come up for that one? Or did I show proof and I don't remember? Fuck if I know. But chances are very high that there was some clue somewhere that can tell me that my reasoning is correct or not. Like, I don't know, it's... Like, the point is, you really have to be... Like, you really have to be... Well, not just that you have to be careful about where there will be hints, but you have to be very good with memory. Memorizing, like, certain details and such. It is quite something. It must not be solvable with clues that aren't presented. And it must not be solved by luck. If this tale is made to be solvable, then we can read this the opposite way. In other words, clues must have been prepared so that the tale can be solved. And it has to be made in a way that it can be solved without relying on luck. If I can believe strongly that Battle is challenging me to a fair game where reasoning is possible, I can be sure of that. And that must mean that Battle has already concealed clues, hints, and messages within the tale so far. It isn't from the decalogue, but a.k.a. or someone said this. There are 3 riddles to be exposed in a mystery. One is the whodunit. Who is the culprit? One is the howdunit. How did they commit the crime? One is the whydunit. Why did they commit the crime? All this means that clues related to these 3 riddles are already present inside this tale. No, strictly speaking, it's like this. Dato scattered hints about because she wanted me to solve those 3 riddles. Though whether I'm capable of catching those hints or not, it is another matter. Even if you pose a riddle thinking it's easy, it might be difficult for the person trying to solve it. And therefore, it's only natural for there to be a difference in how difficult each person thinks it is. And that's why, as battle went through each successive game, she watched me closely and tweaked the game as needed to get a good arrangement. When Battle realized that I completely surrendered in the second game because it was too hard, she secretly worried. If I surrendered and lost the will to fight, the game would no longer remain on an even foot. Therefore, in order to make me regain my will to fight, from the 3rd game onwards, she set things up in a way that made it easier for me, giving me tips on how to fight and a few hints. The appearance of Virgilia and Arnola was obviously so that they could help me. Also, though we still had the usual crazy magic shows, she gave me the metaphor of the bronze tube troll, as well as tips on how to fight back. I finally understood how to fight, and at the end of the 4th game, Bato managed to have the all-out showdown with me that she had probably wanted most of all. Then, Bato acknowledged that my abilities had become full-fledged, and entrusted me with her heart. Entrusted me with explaining this tale, didn't she? In that case, it was really dumb of me to boycott most of the 5th game. Just because I was so disgusted with those 2 witches. It doesn't matter who the game master is. All I need is to search for the truth in Bato's game. On the contrary, I should probably thank those 2 witches just a little for continuing the game in Bato's place now that she's gone and left everything to me. Of course, I doubt those evil witches were trying to do anything of the sort. I mean, at the very least, I don't think that Ben Castello really gives a fuck about this. Lambda, well, it is up in the air what her true intentions are. I mean, like even that one tiny moment at the end of the court when Lambda mentioned Kinzo's dead corpse as some form of slip of the tongue, that is questionable. Like, I feel like I should take that as a hint towards something, which, to be honest, I have yet to think about. But nonetheless, despite those two's intentions, no matter how much is missing from this game that makes it different from Bato's previous games, it does have solid ground to the point where there can be hints here and there that can help us in understanding the entire thing. It's not like I am completely ignoring this game. Hell, the Nox decalogue might also be part of how Berto wants us to solve the entire thing. It's just that she was being such a tsundere about it, she only mentions Nox once in all 4 games, because apparently we are supposed to pick up on the idea that we should truly consider the commandments as well in order to solve this. But Nope. He really took Ben Castell and Erika to summon the daughter of Nox himself, like to summon Delanor, in order to make us truly realize, huh, okay, apparently Nox is gonna be important in solving this. For that matter, I guess I should prepare myself and read on those, like, Von Dyne commandments that I heard of before, like, while we're at it. Like, there are like 20 of those bad boys. Culprit. Crime. Motive. The answers, the hints to those three ultimate riddles must be scattered throughout the tales shown so far. It's probably a very faint light, like trying to find bees that have fallen onto a sandy beach. Nah, they're definitely there. However, they're so faint that, unless I believe strongly, there's no way I'll be able to find them. Which means going back to traverse the entire beach. Maybe not the entire beach, but rather the entire desert, in order to find them at this point. Which, at that point, it is a matter of willpower. Especially with Umineko.
金家謹んで申し上げる。
なんだ。
物語を遡りたまえ。今の汝には真実のか弱き光を見逃さぬ目が与えられていると知れ。
今こそ物語を。
To go back again.
推理可能とは信頼関係の先にあるものと知りたてまつれ。
Still, you do realize that I have viewers watching me go through this, right? Do you really think that I have the liberty to take a break and reread the story for another month while they're waiting for me to do the next part? I mean, that has been a constant feeling of mine that is making me explode, you know.
ああ、知ってるぜ。いや、今ようやく気づいたかもしれない。
I mean, it's something that has been repeated over and over again throughout the tale. Persistently so.
愛がなければ真実は見えない。
Slowly, the tea room dissolved into darkness. And then, as though I was slowly sinking to a pitch-black sea, I passed through the cracks of the long journey I had taken with Battle. And I kept on falling and falling. It was a bizarre experience, like crossing over the boundary of sleep while still conscious. And several tales that I count before became faint bubbles. No, perhaps small shining fragments. They were scattered like stars in a pitch-black sky. I kept sinking on and on into that sea. The tales up until now, one after another. Virgilius guided Dante to Mount Purgatory, and led him to Beatrice, the eternal lady who awaited at the top. Therefore, the innermost depths lay not at the bottom, but at the peak of Mount Purgatory. The eternal lady had been waiting there for Dante, the whole time. And then I knew. I finally reached the truth. Darn it. And this is it. This is what they were talking about. When the story is telling us that the character reached the solution, it is when the reader should go and reason it out for themselves. Well, folks, I honestly don't know what to say. On one hand, I can just stop it right here and look back at the previous episodes, just like that. But I honestly have no idea how long it would take me for me to just do that again, and then continue this. Just stop it right here, think for a while, and then after a week or two, I continue this and finally finish episode 5. This game really does not want me to finish episode 5, huh? First, I keep talking and talking about all sorts of stuff, which is good and all, but, you know, I have you viewers, and honestly, I always feel a little bit of a pain inside me when I have to do this sort of stuff and leave you guys hanging on the Umineko content. I honestly don't know what is gonna happen after I continue further than this right now. Like, if I press this, maybe Bear would tell his reasoning about something. I don't know. I'll have to think about this for a little bit. Okay, so I have taken a bit of a break over here, and I've asked you guys on Discord what I should do here. And the general consensus was that I should at the very least continue and finish episode 5. That I should not worry about any solution being given here, and that I should have reasoned it out earlier. That I should at the very least finish episode 5 and then think about all sorts of stuff before starting episode 6 and all that. Like, I know that I'm going completely against what has been discussed before about the story telling us that the solution is reached by the character, so the reader should reason it out too, before it's too late. Like, I made a judgment call here on whether I should stop here or continue this until I finish episode 5, because, well, I wouldn't want to leave you guys hanging anymore when it comes to episode 5. Like, I've already did, like, a bunch of times up until this point, so I want to at least finish episode 5 and then think about this stuff for you guys. And it's... Christ. Finishing Umineko is gonna take me another 6 years to do so, won't it? So... Okay. Here goes nothing. You know, I am probably worrying about nothing here, anyway. Maybe the episode is gonna end, like, right after the screen. And I won't have to worry about Balder telling his reasoning, like, right now, for whatever truth he reached. Thus, it will act as a motivation for the reader to reason it out some more before starting episode 6, not necessarily, like, right now. I guess so. And, you know what? I just realized this. This is stupid. Like, the hell is wrong with me? I keep thinking about all this stuff, and yet I should be happy for Balder that he managed to reason something out. This could very well be something monumental, damn it. This could very well be the moment Balder renewed his strength and can move forward. Ah, that's it. It's time to break through the threshold. In the depths. No. At the peak of Mount Purgatory. Idiot. You really are an idiot. He woke from the sleep of death, and bit by bit, his sense of pain came back to him. As Balder hung there pierced by the long sword, his head still tilted towards the heavens. Life gradually returned to his face, through an expression of suffering. Okay, this is it. Those who stop thinking are marked with death. Let this be your revival, Beller.
お前は本当にバカだ。大バカだ。
Beller noticed. The whole time, Bato had been snuggling up against him, sleeping. And when he held her, he found that it was not Bato, but her crumbling remains. And because her form was as fragile as ash, when Beller tried to hold it, just like a sandcastle made on a beach, being washed away by a small wave, it fell apart and lost its form. At Beller's feet lay nothing but the ragged remnants of Bato's dress and a pile of ash. No. On top of that pile of ash, you could see something sparkling gold. It was the husk of a single gold butterfly, which had been torn to bits. And so, Beller knew I did reach the truth. But I wasn't able to do it, while Bato still remained in this world.
ベアト、お前本当にバカだろ。俺はようやくお前の出題したこのふざけた謎の真相にたどり着いたんだぞ。お前のお望み通りにくじけずにとうとう最後までたどり着いたのに。なのになんでお前がそれを待てずにくじけちまったんだよ。お前はあんなにも信じてたんだろう。俺が絶対に真実に至ってくれるって。ならどうしてそれを俺と一緒に信じて待てなかったんだよ。永遠の拷問を強いていたのはお前じゃない。俺だ。俺がお前に過酷な拷問を強いた。そしてお前は最後まで抗い俺に訴え続け、そして俺はようやく岩になってたどり着いたってのに、お前はもう待ってなくて手遅れになっちまったって。バカ野郎、どうしてお前が先にくじけちまうんだよ。
It's my fault. I forced her to endure this torture. In fact, I'm amazed she endured for so long. She kept on appealing to me over and over and over again. And because I was so incompetent, I couldn't even begin to understand the truth.
バカ野郎、バカ野郎。お前の謎はさ、ひねりすぎなんだよ。どうしてもっと簡単に言えねえんだよ。
Yeah, something that I've thought about as well before. It doesn't hurt to be a little bit more direct sometimes.
バカ野郎。
His scream of pain filled this cathedral of sorrow. The sad witch who wasn't able to let Better know the truth. and a sad man who wasn't able to understand the witch's truth. And Ballard howled in anger and sadness for both of them. And the clock hung in the cathedral showed that it was the midnight on October 5th, 1986. Time was up for everything. If you're going to create a riddle as hard as this and be so proud of it, don't go and set a goddamn time limit on it.
いや、わかるぜ。それほどのわずかな奇跡の中に、お前は祈ったんだよな。お前もじいさまと同じだったんだ。
He prayed for and bet on the power of a miracle. One so unlikely that it was totally impossible. Less likely than finding a bead you've dropped on a sandy beach. And because it did, I have now arrived at that miracle. But your time didn't last long enough. If I had reached this point even a little sooner, I could have seen the truth. If it had been right before time was up, I might have been able to save you. But now, I've been run through pathetically, and I can't even hold what remains of you. I struggled, attempting to pull the long sword out, or at least touch her remains by stretching out my arms, but neither worked. At that time, I noticed a golden glint on the palm of my hand. It was a single wing from a gold butterfly. And that small fragment of gold was the only piece of battle that I was permitted to touch. Oh boy. And it's happening. My eyes are turning watery right now. I cried with all my strength, and gripped that fragment, and pressed it against my head, apologizing. Why couldn't I reach the truth earlier? And then I pressed it to my chest, promising that even though things had come to this, I would never again lose the truth. When I pressed my hand against my chest, the sword piercing my chest cut my wrist, and blood trickled out. And that blood spread throughout my fist, and it must have soaked that gold fragment with my red blood. Must have been the only way of telling her that I found the truth she had wanted to tell me. I clutched the wing of the gold butterfly with my freshly bleeding hands and pressed it against the red sword that impaled me. In this moment, the Shurimiya Beller knew and understood. He had arrived at the entirety of this tale. At that moment, it seemed as though a faint golden light leaked out of the gaps in his clenched fist. The two witches had their backs turned, and Enika was laughing at Balor's corpse.
本当に無様ですね、バトラさん。あなたの愚かさを石像にして永遠に。え？
Just then, Balor's chest, no, the red longsword impaling Balor, began to shine gold from deep within his chest. That bright golden light began to change the red sword's color, turning it gold. Balor?
何事？バトラがこれは何？
Better coughed up blood and groaned. His consciousness came back. His will to live, his will to fight came back. The red longsword impeding Beller could no longer be described as such. By now, he had become a golden longsword. Then, slowly, it pulled itself out of Beller's chest. After it had finally pulled itself out of Beller completely, it flipped through the air. Oh man! And stuck upright in the ground in front of Beller's eyes, as though it knew who its master was. Beller, crawling on the floor in mourning, grabbed the long golden longsword. And though it looked painful, he slowly rose to his feet once again. Oh snap! Does this mean that we're going for round 2? Please tell me that we're going for round 2. Lambda stared wide-eyed at a bright golden glow in awe. Noticing that Beller's resurrection wasn't part of script, Lambda had fought up. Bern also frowned slightly.
悪いわね。最新は却下よ。シエスタ姉妹、その復活幻想を削除しなさい。了解であります。45、410、発砲許可。
それが照準不能 IFF エラーコード999ヒュー
39だとバカな。
The Chister sisters hesitated, unable to carry out Ben Castell's orders.
ラムダ、これはどういう茶番よ。完全に魔女幻想は打ち破られて、法廷は私の勝利に終わったはずよ。
悪いわねベルン。もう少し付き合ってもらうわ。そうでしょ後ろ宮バトラ
ー。ああ、任せたなエリカ。ベルン・カステル。
Alright. Whatever it is you have in mind, whatever your plan is, I am all in, Beller. It is time for us to challenge them for real this time.